Good morning. We are going today to be shifting away from fiction text and looking at traits that describe the character, and we are going to now be shifting to non-fiction text. We are going to be focusing on a standard RI 3.3, which is where we describe the steps in the technical procedure as it relates to time, sequence, and cause and effect. A lot of things in there sound really familiar to me, right? Knowing like time, right? The essence of time and that something might take an hour or something might take 3 hours, right? Sequence, the word sequence meaning like first, next, last, step one, step two, step three, right? And we spent a lot of time learning about cause and effect, right? Because I did one thing, something happened. So that is what we're going to be focusing on. But a question popped out to me, and I look at this and I think, I'm not really sure what a technical procedure might be. Well, I'm going to give you an example of a technical procedure. An example of a technical procedure might be like a recipe or even like something that has a set of directions. Like when I think about Mr. Pagos, right? He's outside right now and he's planting some seeds, right? But there's a step that he has to do. First, he has to, put the dirt in the pot, right? Then he has to make a little hole. And then you're gonna put the seed and then cover it with dirt. Those are all steps of how he'd need to be able to focus on planting. So I love to have tools for my toolbox. So when we're talking about these types of procedural texts, I apologize, we're gonna be asking ourselves 4 questions, right? And the question may not always be answered, but we're gonna try our best. So the first one is, when would this procedure be useful? Second one is, why does the author think that this is useful? Third one, what materials do I need to complete the procedure? And fourth, how do I complete it? So what we're going to do is we are going to be watching a video where we are going to be answering these questions, hopefully. And again, these questions are not always answered.
Hi readers, today we're going to learn about following steps in a procedure.
What's a procedure?
A procedure is a set of steps you follow to do something. A recipe is an example of a procedure.
Cool! So if I want to bake a chocolate cake, that's following a procedure?
Yeah, let's look at why it's so important to follow the steps in a procedure. Here's what I need for my cake: sugar, flour, cocoa powder, eggs, milk, butter, salt, and baking powder. I'm going to make sure I have everything I need before I follow the directions.
Now, when I go back to this page, right, this answers my question of what material do I need to complete the procedure. Now, these aren't technically materials, right? These are ingredients. So these are the ingredients that I need in order to complete the procedure.
Before I follow the directions. Let's look at the directions. I see that they're numbered in order. Let's start with what it says first. Number 1, preheat the oven to 350 degrees and grease and flour 2 9-inch round pans. Then, in a large bowl, it looks like I'm stirring together a lot of the ingredients. Third, I'm going to mix the ingredients for 2 minutes and pour everything into the pans. Next, I'm going to bake my cake for 30 to 35 minutes in my preheated oven that I already turned on in step 1. And last, I'm going to cool the cake in the pans for 10 minutes, then remove them to a wire rack to keep cooling.
When I look at this page that we just read, right, this is the how. How do I complete it? These are the directions that are telling me exactly what I need to do in sequential order to complete this recipe.
Looks like if I follow all these directions in the right order, I'll end up with a delicious chocolate cake. What would happen if I didn't follow the steps in order? If I tried to bake the cake before I heated the oven, my cake won't cook. And if I forget one of the steps, I might miss the ingredients, and then I won't have a complete cake. And if I tried to mix the cake after I baked it, I would just have a big mess.
Right here answers our question of why does the author think that this step-by-step is important or useful, right? The author is saying that if we didn't do it in step order, right, so say we didn't preheat the oven, right? That means heat it before we put the cake in. The cake won't cook. You won't be at the right temperature, so it might cook unevenly, right? It might not be ready when you think it's ready, and then you have like raw cake, right? So this is why the author thinks that these steps are useful, so that these things will not happen.
I can see why it's so important to follow the steps in order so I get the right cake.
Oh, I see. It's really important to follow the steps in order.
Yes, when we read a text with directions or steps, it's really important to follow what comes first, next, and last.
I bet paying attention to the steps in order helps us answer questions about our reading, too.
Yes, for example, when should you add the eggs to make your chocolate cake? If I look back at step 2, I see where it tells me to add the eggs. I should add them after I stir together the sugar and the flour. And how about this question? Can you use a small bowl to make the cake? I remember when I was reading through the directions, step number 2 told me that I needed a large bowl. And that's because I have to stir together so many ingredients. They wouldn't fit in a small bowl. It's a good thing I read through all these directions before I got started, so I knew what materials I would need.
Cool. What about this question? Why do you need to preheat the oven first?
Wow, that's a tough question. Let me look back at step 1, where it told me about preheating the oven. I also remember in step 4, that's when I needed to put the cake into the oven. So if I didn't preheat the oven first, it wouldn't be hot enough by the time I needed to put the cakes in. Knowing how to follow steps in a procedure definitely helps us to be better readers. And
Okay, so we were able to answer a lot of the questions that we have for our toolbox. We were able to answer why the author thinks that this is useful. We were also able to answer what materials that we needed to complete the procedure. And we were also able to answer, how do I complete it? So now, your exit ticket for today's lesson, is going to be on your Google Classroom, where you are going to answer this question here. When would this procedure be useful? The first thing you have to ask yourself, what procedure did we just watch a video about? What procedure was it? What were those steps, right? And why? And when do you think that this will be useful? When do you think it would be useful to know the steps of making a cake? So come back again tomorrow, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper using these 4 questions. Have a great day.